The call reached me while I was 40 feet underwater. Your son is dead. Those 4 words hit harder than any explosion I'd ever faced. My boy was just 10. He used a wheelchair, and our neighbor had shot him over the length of our grass. She killed him and later smiled in court. I'm a Navy SEAL. I've spent my life learning 100 different ways to deliver justice, but nothing could have prepared me for this. I was in the middle of a training dive when the radio crackled through my headset. Lieutenant Commander Hayes, surface immediately. Family emergency. Those 2 words made my blood run cold. I kicked upward with everything I had, breaking every protocol as I shot through the water toward the surface. 1,000 terrible thoughts raced through my head, but none came close to the reality that awaited me. The moment I climbed out, dripping in full combat gear, one of the young officers rushed over. His voice shook. Sir, there's been an incident at your home. Your son is dead, sir. I'm so sorry. Dead. My Jake. My sweet, gentle boy. The world stopped moving. I couldn't hear the waves, the shouting, the helicopter blades. Everything went silent. Only one word echoed inside me. How? A neighbor shot him, the officer said softly. The police are on scene now. Within 3 minutes, I was aboard a transport helicopter, still soaking wet, water pooling beneath my boots. My heart pounded so violently it hurt. Jake wasn't just my son, he was my light. A 10-year-old who loved comic books and video games, who lived every day with cerebral palsy, but never stopped smiling. He laughed at my terrible jokes, told me he loved me every single day. He couldn't walk, but he had a way of lighting up any room he entered. And now someone had taken him from us. The 40-minute flight home felt endless. I sat stiff in my seat, refusing to accept any of it. This had to be some horrific mistake. Jake should have been at home with his mom, safe, watching his favorite shows, eating mac and cheese. He couldn't be gone. But the moment the helicopter touched down at the base nearest to home, and I saw Rebecca's brother waiting with tears streaming down his face, the denial shattered. Marcus, he whispered, voice breaking, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. My voice turned cold, the way it does on missions when emotion gets men killed. Tell me everything. Jake had been outside in the front yard, playing with his toy cars. He loved lining them up, creating races and little stories only he understood. Rebecca was inside making lunch, checking on him through the window every few minutes, like she always did. Our neighbor, Patricia Holloway, was the HOA president, and a constant problem since the day we moved in. She complained about everything. Our car parked on the street, trash cans out too long, even the wheelchair ramp we built for Jake. Most of the time, we ignored her. I was deployed half the year, and Rebecca already carried enough raising Jake without wasting energy on HOA politics. That morning, Patricia decided our lawn was too long, 3.5 inches when the rule said 3. She marched over with a tape measure and a camera to document the violation. That's when she found Jake on the sidewalk with his cars. Where's your mother? She snapped. Jake, shy and struggling with speech, simply pointed toward the house. Words were hard for him, but most people understood and waited patiently. Patricia wasn't like most people. I need to speak with your mother about this lawn. It's completely unacceptable. Do you understand me? Jake nodded quietly, keeping his eyes on his cars. Are you ignoring me? She barked. Her voice grew louder. I'm talking to you. Where is your mother? Neighbors later told police she seemed unusually agitated, angry in a way that didn't make sense for a lawn issue. Jake tried to turn his wheelchair toward the house, wanting to escape. Patricia stepped in front of him, blocking the way. You can't just ignore me. This is my neighborhood. I make the rules here. Your family needs to learn respect. Jake started to cry, frightened and confused. Mama, he called out, the words slurred but clear. Stop that noise, Patricia shouted. Stop it right now. Inside, Rebecca heard Jake's cries and ran outside. Rebecca burst through the front door to find Patricia towering over Jake. He sat in his wheelchair, sobbing, desperately trying to will himself away from her. Get away from my son, she shouted, sprinting toward them. Your lawn is in violation, Patricia snapped, as if that explained everything. I'm issuing a citation and a fine. This is the 3rd violation this month. The HOA board will be discussing eviction procedures. Eviction? Are you insane? This is our home, Rebecca yelled back. Then maintain it properly and teach your child some manners. He completely ignored me. That was the breaking point. 2 years of harassment, 2 years of petty citations, 2 years of being treated like criminals over grass length and mailbox colors, it all came flooding out. My son has cerebral palsy. He's 10 years old. He was playing with his toys. You don't talk to him. You don't go near him. You leave him alone. Don't tell me what to do. This is my neighborhood, Patricia barked. It's our neighborhood too. We live here. We pay our mortgage. We pay your ridiculous HOA fees. We follow your insane rules. What more do you want from us? Patricia's face turned red with rage. I want you people gone. You don't belong here. Coming into this community with your disabled child, your ramps, your special equipment, lowering everyone's property values. That was the moment Rebecca snapped. She slapped Patricia hard across the face. Patricia stumbled backward, shock flashing across her face, then fury. Her hand shot into her jacket pocket. When it came back out, she was holding a gun. You assaulted me, she said, her voice deadly calm. Everyone saw. You assaulted me. Rebecca froze. Her hands went up instinctively. Patricia, please. Put that away. Please. Jake's sobs grew louder. Mama, he cried. Mama's scared. I'm defending myself, Patricia muttered, almost like she was convincing herself. She attacked me. I'm standing my ground. I'm sorry, Rebecca begged, tears running down her face. I'm sorry I slapped you. Please put the gun down. Please. My son. Your son should learn respect, Patricia hissed, and then she turned the gun toward Jake. Rebecca screamed, throwing herself forward to shield him. The first shot hit Jake in the chest. The second struck Rebecca in the leg as she tried to cover her son's body, screaming his name over and over. By the time neighbors rushed over, by the time the police arrived, Jake was gone. He died in his mother's arms on our front lawn, over 3.5 inches of grass. Hours later, I stood in the driveway staring at the blood stains on the concrete. Jake's wheelchair lay overturned. His toy cars were still lined up on the sidewalk where he'd left them, red, blue, green, yellow, waiting for him to finish his race. But he wasn't coming back. My boy was in the morgue. My wife was in the hospital with a shattered femur. And Patricia Holloway was in custody, likely already on the phone with her lawyer, preparing her defense. She killed my gentle, innocent boy who had never harmed anyone in his life. Something cold and heavy settled in my chest. Something I usually only felt on missions when emotions had to be locked away. But this wasn't a mission. This was my son, my family, and Patricia Holloway was going to pay. Detective Rodriguez, a tired man in his 50s, approached me carefully like I was a live explosive. Lieutenant Commander Hayes, I'm Detective Rodriguez. I'm so sorry for your loss. I said nothing. If I opened my mouth, I'd never stop screaming. I need to ask a few preliminary questions, he continued. I nodded. Did your family have ongoing issues with Mrs. Holloway? Yes. HOA complaints, citations, harassment. My voice was flat, distant. Did your son have any interaction with her before today? No. We kept Jake away from her. She complained about his wheelchair ramp, called it an eyesore. Multiple witnesses confirmed Mrs. Holloway pulled her weapon first. Your wife slapped her, but only after Holloway made offensive comments about your son's disability. The shooting isn't defensible. Understand your ground laws. She'll still be charged with first-degree murder and attempted murder. Murder. Such a small word for something that had destroyed my entire world. She'll claim self-defense, I muttered. She can claim whatever she wants, Rodriguez said. The evidence doesn't support it. She pulled a gun on a disabled child and his mother over long length. No jury in the world will side with her, Detective Rodriguez said. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to. But I'd seen too much. I knew how the system worked, how lawyers could twist stories, how a well-connected, sympathetic defendant could sway a jury. Patricia Holloway had been HOA president for 12 years. She probably knew half the judges in the county, probably had barbecues with the police chief. She wasn't just some neighbor, she was entrenched. I want to see my wife, I said. Of course. We'll have an officer drive you to the hospital. Rebecca was in a hospital bed, her leg encased in a cast, her eyes hollow and lifeless. The moment she saw me, she broke down, sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. I couldn't stop her, she cried. I tried, Marcus. I tried to get to him, but she shot him. She just shot him and I couldn't save him. I held her as she fell apart in my arms, feeling my own grief threaten to crush me, but I couldn't shatter. Not yet. She needed strength, and I had to be that for her. This isn't your fault, I said firmly. Yes, it is. I slapped her. If I hadn't slapped her, she had a gun, Rebecca. She came over here looking for a fight with a loaded weapon in her pocket. If it wasn't the slap, it would have been something else. She just kept crying, repeating that she should have been faster, stronger, that she should have protected Jake. Eventually, the doctor sedated her, and she drifted into an exhausted sleep. I sat by her bedside, holding her hand, staring at nothing. My son was dead. My wife was broken. And Patricia Holloway was sitting in a holding cell, likely planning her defense with a team of lawyers who believed they could spin this. 3 days later, we buried Jake. The casket was small, white, covered in comic book heroes, Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, all his favorites. Rebecca sat in a wheelchair beside me, still too injured to stand, her eyes fixed on the casket with a lifeless stare. Half the base turned out. My SEAL team stood in dress uniform, forming an honor guard. Jake had loved when I wore my uniform. He'd tell everyone his dad was a superhero. Some superhero. I couldn't even protect my own son. The service blurred by. I hardly remembered anything except Rebecca's soft crying, the strong hands of my friends on my shoulders, and the small white casket going down into the ground. Jake loved superheroes because the good guys always won. But here there were no heroes. Just a dead boy, shattered parents, and a system that would now decide if his killer would face justice. 2 days after the funeral, Patricia Holloway's lawyer held a press conference. My client is a pillar of the community who was viciously assaulted in her own neighborhood. She acted in self-defense when an aggressive woman attacked her. This is a tragedy, but Mrs. Holloway is the victim here, not the aggressor. I watched the press conference on the hospital TV while Rebecca slept. The lawyer was good, too good. He made Patricia sound reasonable, like a concerned citizen maintaining community standards. He painted Rebecca as unstable and violent. And Jake? He was barely mentioned. Just a polite acknowledgement of the family's loss, like my son was a footnote in Patricia's story. My phone rang. It was my commanding officer. Marcus, I just saw the news. What do you need? What can we do? I need the system to work, sir. I need her to go to prison for what she did. There was a long pause. And if the system doesn't work? I didn't answer, because I knew what I'd do if Patricia Holloway walked free, and it wouldn't be legal. Marcus, he said carefully, I know what you're thinking. Don't. You have another child to think about. Jake is dead. The words tore out of me like shrapnel. My son is dead because some insane woman cared more about grass than human life, and now her lawyer is on TV calling her the victim. I know, but you can't take matters into your own hands. You have to trust the system. The system let her harass us for 2 years. The system ignored her violations of disability laws. The system failed my son. Why should I trust it now? He was quiet for a long moment. Because if you don't, you'll destroy what's left of your family. Rebecca needs you. You need to be there for her, not in prison for revenge. He was right. I knew he was right. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw Jake's toy cars lined up on the sidewalk. Red, blue, green, yellow, waiting for a boy who would never come back. 3 weeks after Jake's death, the preliminary hearing began. Rebecca was still on crutches, her leg healing slowly, but her mind, it wasn't healing at all. She hardly spoke anymore. Most days, she'd sit quietly in Jake's room, staring at his comic books, his video games, the posters on his wall, like if she stared long enough, he might walk back in. At night, I'd hear her cry through the walls. Other times, she'd sit in silence, lost somewhere I couldn't reach. The hearing was meant to be routine, just to prove there was enough evidence for a full trial. Jennifer Chin, our prosecutor, told us it was a formality. The evidence is overwhelming, she said. Multiple witnesses. Security camera footage. Your son was a disabled child. There's no self-defense claim here. But Patricia Holloway had hired a lawyer who was famous, expensive, and terrifyingly good at creating doubt. In court, I sat beside Rebecca, watching that man twist reality. He painted Patricia as a scared woman who'd been harassed by a mentally unstable neighbor over petty HOA disputes. He claimed Rebecca had attacked Patricia out of nowhere. He even told the court Patricia had received death threats and threatening phone calls, that she only carried a gun because she feared for her life. It was all lies. But the way he spoke, calm, practiced, he planted seeds of doubt in the room. When the security footage played, I couldn't watch. I closed my eyes. I couldn't see my son die again. I couldn't watch Rebecca throw herself over his body and scream his name. But I heard it. I heard people gasp, I heard them crying, even the judge breathed, and sharply Patricia's lawyer said smoothly, Your Honor, the video clearly shows my client was scared after being attacked. The judge cut him off. What it shows is your client shooting an unarmed disabled child. Save your arguments for trial. I've seen enough. The judge ruled there was enough evidence to go to trial. Patricia Holloway would face first-degree murder charges. As they let her out, she turned and looked right at me. Her eyes were cold, no guilt, no regret, just irritation that this was taking up her time. Something inside me broke. I was out of my seat before I even knew I'd moved, lunging toward her with my hands reaching for her throat. I wanted her dead. My CO brothers grabbed me and held me back while I screamed that I would kill her for what she did to Jake. Patricia just gave this slight smile, like I'd handed her exactly what she wanted. The judge threatened me with contempt. The prosecutor looked horrified. Then I understood I had walked right into their trap. I had given her lawyer proof that we were violent, that we were unstable, that we were dangerous. Exactly the narrative they wanted. But then my SIO's words echoed in my head. You have another child to think about. Rebecca had been pregnant when Jake died. We just found out. We were going to surprise Jake with the news that he'd be a big brother. She was 4 months pregnant with our second child, and I was not sure she could survive losing another. One night she whispered, if it is a boy, I want to name him Jake. It was the first full sentence she'd spoken in weeks. Okay, I whispered back. We'll name him Jake. She broke down crying. Real tears. I miss him so much. I couldn't breathe. I held her tight in our son's empty room, surrounded by his things, both of us drowning in grief. When the trial finally began on a freezing January morning, the courtroom was packed. Media, supporters, curious strangers. Everyone wanted to witness the sensational trial of an HOA president who killed a disabled child. Patricia sat at the defense table in a simple blue suit, looking harmless like a sweet old neighbor. The prosecution explained everything, the footage showing Patricia pulling the gun first, witnesses describing her harassment, experts testifying that Jake posed no threat, the medical examiner explaining he was shot in the chest from 6 feet away, execution style. Even Patricia's lawyer shifted uncomfortably. But then the defense took over and everything changed. They called witnesses who said Patricia was a devoted community servant. They had a psychologist say she had anxiety and really feared for her life. Then they attacked Rebecca, showing her medical records, antidepressants, and therapy, making her seem unstable. They did not use Jake's records, but brought experts to say families with disabled kids often face stress and problems. Slowly, they weren't just defending Patricia. They were turning us into the villains. I sat in the courtroom watching the jury's faces. Some looked sympathetic, others unsure. Patricia's lawyer was good, too good. He was not trying to prove she was innocent. He just wanted to plant a small seed of doubt, and it was working. When Rebecca took the stand, her hands were shaking. The prosecutor spoke softly. Ms. Hayes, can you describe what happened the morning of June 15th? When Rebecca took the stand, her hands trembled. Her voice was barely a whisper. Jake was outside playing with his toy cars. He loved cars. He would line them up and race them. Tears ran down her cheeks. The prosecutor told her to take her time. She told the court what happened. Patricia came over to complain about the lawn. She started yelling at Jake and asking where I was. Jake could not answer quickly because his cerebral palsy made speech hard. Patricia got angry and stood over him yelling. He began to cry. Rebecca ran outside and told Patricia to get away from our son. Patricia said Jake was rude and that our family lowered property values because he was disabled. Rebecca lost her temper and slapped her. Then Patricia pulled a gun. She pointed it at Rebecca and then at Jake. Rebecca begged her to stop and tried to get between the gun and our boy, but it was too late. Rebecca broke down and the courtroom was quiet except for her crying. Then Patricia's lawyer rose to cross-examine. He asked about Rebecca's history of depression and anxiety and whether she had taken her medication that morning. Rebecca hesitated and said she did not remember. The lawyer argued that maybe she had not been thinking clearly. He reminded the jury that Rebecca had hit Patricia. The prosecutor objected, but the damage was done. The lawyer made Rebecca sound unreliable and unstable. She left the stand barely able to walk. Next, Patricia testified. She looked small and scared. She said she got threatening calls and that she carried a gun for protection. She said she only went to document a lawn problem. She said the boy ignored her and then the mother ran out and hit her in the face. Patricia said she was terrified and pulled her gun to defend herself. She cried on the stand. Her performance was perfect. Some jurors cried with her. My lawyer had warned me. Juries want an explanation that makes sense even if it is not true. After 2 weeks, the case went to the jury. We waited 3 days. Rebecca stared at walls. I paced the hallways. My Seal brothers took shifts sitting with us because they feared what I might do. The verdict came on a Thursday afternoon. The jury filed in without looking at us. That was not a good sign. On first-degree murder, the jury said not guilty. On second-degree murder, not guilty. On voluntary manslaughter, guilty. Manslaughter, not murder. As if Jake's death was a mistake. Patricia sobbed with relief and her lawyer hugged her. Manslaughter carried a maximum of 15 years, but with good behavior she might serve 7. 7 years for killing my son. I stood and walked out. I did not talk to anyone. I drove without direction until I reached the cemetery. I stood at Jake's grave and whispered, "I am sorry." I told him I failed him. My phone rang and I turned it off. For the first time since the funeral, I let myself break. I do not know how long I sat there. The sun set and it got cold. 7 years. Patricia would be free in 7 years. She would go back to her house and her HOA duties while Jake stayed in the ground. Rebecca would live with PTSD and survivor guilt. Our second child would never know his big brother. I thought about how I could make Patricia pay. I pictured her life leaving her eyes. I imagined making her feel our pain. The thought burned inside me. Then I thought about Rebecca and our unborn child. If I killed Patricia, I would go to prison. Rebecca would lose her husband as well as her son. Our baby would grow up without a father. Patricia would win even in death. She would destroy our family. I could not let that happen. Jake would not want that. Sitting in the dark, something inside me changed. The cold rage did not turn into forgiveness. It turned into purpose. I could not bring Jake back. I could not undo what Patricia did, but I could work to make sure it never happened to another family. Over the next 6 months, I threw myself into action. I became an advocate for HOA reform. I started a foundation in Jake's name. I worked with lawmakers to write new laws to protect families, and especially families with disabled children, from harassment. I told Jake's story again and again. I spoke before state committees about how HOAs can become tools for petty tyrants. I warned how unchecked power can lead to tragedy. Slow changes began. 3 states passed laws that limited HOA authority. They required background checks for board members. They created oversight panels and penalties for harassment. It was not enough. It would never be enough. But it was something. Rebecca gave birth to our second son in March. We named him Jake. He has his brother's eyes. Patricia Holloway served 4 years and then died of a heart attack in prison. I did not go to her funeral. She had already taken too much from us. Baby Jake is 6 now. He knows about his big brother who loved comic books and toy cars and never grew up. Sometimes I find Rebecca standing at the doorway of the old bedroom crying quietly. Grief never leaves. We learned to carry it. We survived. We built something to honor what we lost. I hope Jake knows that his father never stopped fighting for him. The system may have failed us, but love did not. Love kept us standing.